etiquette, what you want to do and what you do not want to do when hosting a webinar, when you are the co-hoster, and when you are the attendee. So I'm Megan. I will be presenting, and we have Joe co-presenting with me today. If there's any questions after the webinar, feel free to send us an email. So today, covered in this webinar, we'll go over the 3 different types of etiquette when in a webinar, whether you're presenting, co-presenting, or attending a webinar. So the presenter has the most responsibility in a webinar. You are the center of attention. So you want to be prepared. You need to provide support for your attendees so that everything will go smoothly. You want to be efficient, starting on time. Your setting should be clean and quiet so it's not distracting from your webinar. And eye contact is key, and body language. And we're going to get a little more into that in the next few slides here. So this is one of the biggest problems when people host webinars, is your slides do not fit properly. We allow the host to go into their webinar in a half an hour before it starts, and that's a great time to go and make sure it does fit, like this one. So to be prepared, you need to know your software well before you get in. As I said, we allow hosts to come in a half hour before the webinar starts so you can test out your presentation, make sure everything works, so that way you don't have interruptions in your webinar. So your presentation should be prepared, and then don't let technical issues set you back. So you can test your webcam before, test your mic, and make sure everything will go smoothly so you don't have to stop in the middle of your presentation. Technical support. So you want to make sure that all your guests know what software they should have before you enter your webinar. That way they won't come in and interrupt your webinar and ask questions. So sending out an email a few days before just to make sure they have the up-to-date browsers and that they have tested their webcams and microphones is always a good idea to keep your webinar running smoothly. So I have some screenshots of how you can do that before here. This is a picture of before a webinar begins, or this one actually is in progress. Before it begins, though, it will have a countdown up in this green box. And below, you can't really see it here, but it says View Full System Requirements. And so that drops down into these, and this is where you can test your webcam by clicking here, which brings up this box. So then you can test and see your picture, make sure you can see your face clearly, and your microphone. It'll show you, the little bar will move up and down if your audio is correct. And then to test your speakers to make sure that your sound is all right and your attendees can hear you, there's another option test there. And then it will play music, and you'll be able to figure that out. And if you can't, you can always talk to our support team, and they will help you with that. So the next thing you want to do is be efficient. Starting on time is very important. You can allow a few minutes, like I did, to allow some late guests to roll in, but starting on time will keep your attendees happy, and it won't make your webinar run over. So come prepared and just get started. And then with the webinar, you do have the flexibility to schedule your presentation whatever time works for you. So you shouldn't have an excuse to start late. Next step of webinar etiquette is your setting. You should be in a quiet room with well lit and clean. As this picture shows, it's not a clean room, but as long as what the camera shows is clean, then you should be good. Also, you should be aware of outside interference. Make sure there's no one that's going to jump up behind you, as in this picture, and make sure that it is a quiet area. You don't want background noise to interrupt your presentation. Eye contact is key. This way you know that your audience is appreciated for coming and attending your webinar, and it keeps them engaged, so make sure to try and make eye contact with them. Body language is a very big one. Most people could like sit over here, and then you just don't look professional if you don't have good body language. So you want to sit up straight, have good posture, and some people do tend to talk a lot with their hands. It's not the best etiquette for a webinar. It's distracting. It's in the way. You could bump your microphone a few times. You don't want that. So try and keep your hand gestures down. Sit up tall and look professional. It'll also make you feel more confident when you're giving your presentation. So here are a few examples of bad posture. You don't want to be too close to the screen because then it's just your face and it's distracting. You don't want to be too far, could lose your mic, or again, just distracting, and it's not as comfortable as just sitting upright. All right, so moving on from the presenter's correct etiquette, co-presenter. They are there to be attentive and respectful of the presentation going on. So as a co-presenter, your job is to assist the presenter. As Joe is doing in the chat, he's keeping up with the people in the room and adding comments, which is not distracting to me. It's just helping the presentation move on. So you observe the chat and you respond to attendees' questions. So if you do have questions, feel free to type in there and Joe will answer them for you. Also, as a co-presenter, you need to be respectful. You're assisting the presenter. You don't want to take over their role. And turning off your microphone, unless you are asked by the presenter to assist them, is good, so then your background noise isn't being picked up by the presenter. Now on to attendee etiquette. Similar to the presenter, you want to check your software before. Hopefully your presenter will give you the information before, but it's good to go on ahead and check that you will be able to get into the software or the program and get in without any problems, because you don't want to be that one guest that can't get in to view a webinar. It's good to mute your microphone to not distract from the presenter, and be respectful in the question and answer part. You don't want to be asking 20 questions when there's other people with questions as well. So the software key is to check before. You don't want to come in a minute before the webinar starts, have problems, and then try and figure it out, because you're going to miss the webinar, or you will distract the presenter or other attendees. So make sure you come in before the webinar, or try our tour room or trial room on the BigMarker homepage to test your webcam and your microphone, and just make sure that everything works for you before you enter. And if you do have any more questions, contact the support team with any questions, and we will be more than happy to help. So again, you have the same page before you enter a webinar, and you can click to test your webcam as before, as I showed earlier, and test your speakers. Although the attendee will often have their microphone turned off and webcam, during the question and answer portion of the webinar, sometimes presenters will allow attendees to turn on their microphone and ask questions, so you want to make sure that they're working before that happens. So as I said, most attendees will have their microphone muted. So in the case that it's not automatically muted, you want to make sure that you're in a distraction-free environment, so you're not distracting anybody, and mute your microphone just to be safe. Even though if you are in a quiet area, some interruption could occur and it would distract everybody. So just for the benefit of everybody, mute your microphone. And the last thing for attendees is to be respectful. You don't want to interrupt the presenter, which is difficult if your microphone is muted, but We have a feature which you'll see in the bottom right-hand corner is a raise hand, which will notify the presenter that you would like to say something, and it doesn't distract the presenter and get them distracted from their presentation. In the question and answer section at the end of the webinar, just keep your topic or your questions on topic. You don't want to ask a question about a different webinar when this one's in session. If you have a different topic question to ask, you want to send the presenter an email and not interrupt their webinar while it's happening. And listen to the other attendees because they may be able to get, or they may be asking a question that you want to know, and then it would eliminate duplicating questions. So just a quick recap. As a presenter, you have three main jobs. You want to be prepared, you want to be punctual, be on time, and be interactive with your audience. You want to keep them engaged, keep them interested in what you're talking about. As the co-presenter, you are here to assist. You want to respond to the attendees in the webinar and be respectful of everybody in the presentation. And as an attendee, you want to observe. You don't want to interrupt. You got to respect the presenter and the co-presenter. And then in the question and answer portion, you can ask away, but remember to keep them on topic. So on BigMarker, you can host free webinars with up to 100 people. Following these webinar etiquette tips, you will be able to host well-done webinars with our software. And coming up, we have some new features, which our co-presenter Joe will talk more about here.
Hello, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me just fine. If you can't, please let me know. We do have some upcoming features on BigMarker that I just want to let you know about in case you're a user or wanted to try BigMarker. And as you can see, I'm actually not taking one of Megan's tips into account because you can obviously see that that's a pretty ugly door behind me and an ugly kind of ceiling. It's not necessarily as fun. So unfortunately, I did not read over this presentation beforehand, so I guess I'm just caught up, and I'll talk with my hands a bunch too. So the future of BigMarker, just something to note that we have some exciting news. Basically, we're moving forward with a brand new type of conference room and webinar room so that we'll have really amazing stuff coming soon that allows us to eventually do more attendees, more different types of webinars, have more cool features like sharing your YouTube videos, etc., having polls inside the conference room so that you can have actually more engaging webinars. So as you're doing your etiquette, things like that in your webinars, you can actually poll people and have a more engaging experience. This is going to be built right now for Firefox and Google Chrome, so it's in WebRTC. Here's a little quick look at it so you can kind of see the differences between the two conference rooms as now, where it's got polls, audience feedback, control panel for you as an admin, new sharing options, much easier and sleeker looking. So it's going to be a really great experience for both you and your attendees. And it allows us to do a lot of different cool stuff like launch webinars from your own website and have all sorts of other cool features too. So if you'd like to know more about this and then be part of our the first launch and have first access to this, please go to our blog quick, and there is a little email subscribe area, and if you'd like to just put your email in there, that will let you know when you're able to start trying it out. And that basically gives you access to everything and anything that you can have access to for that new update. It's going to be really amazing and change how webinars are hosted on BigMarker and hopefully the internet as a whole. And then now let's go back to Megan.
All right, so to finish up, we just wanted to encourage you guys to follow us on all of our social media. Keep getting updates like this new WebRTC update coming up, which is really exciting. So if you need help, feel free to contact help.bigmarker.com. Check out the blog. That's where you can sign up for to get updates on the new updates on BigMarker and especially this upcoming WebRTC. And then YouTube, we put our recordings on YouTube so you can see them for later use. This one will be uploaded as well as on the community page. Our Facebook will keep updating with new changes and blog posts that come up and new webinars coming up, so make sure to check that out. And follow us on Twitter for more updates as well. There we go. All right, and now I will open up the floor. If you have any questions, feel free to ask away.